Hi, this is CF Liu, independent financial advisor. And in this video, I want to talk about property investing strategy in recession or economic crisis. So let's get right into it. Now, property investing strategy during a recession or economic crisis can be divided for two groups of people. And these two groups of people are distinctly different when it comes to their property investing strategy, especially in crisis or recession. Now, number one, I want to really zoom into the first group of people where if you're a property investor and then you have already invested into property before the economic crisis or recession actually struck. So basically, during this time, you have five challenges that you need to overcome when it comes to holding on and surviving this property investing landscape during a recession or crisis time. Number one, in the context of the year 2020. Now, you know that this is not an economic crisis, it is a health crisis. It's a health crisis globally that leads to an economic crisis, right? Stoppage of all economic activity. Now, you really want to understand how economic crisis or recession happens, check on the lesson that is popping up now in the upper right hand corner after this video ends. The uncertainty when it comes to how long this virus, this pandemic will actually persist. Right now, we are talking about a time whereby it's no longer a concern, right? When the vaccine is widely available. Now, that could take like, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years, or even 5 years, right? Very terrifying because it's highly contagious, right? People are actually panicking over this. When economic activity stop, people are going to have less income, they're going to be out of jobs, and then going on, the consequence would be there will be a lot of non-performing loans that leads to a lot of panic selling of those property investors, right? When they lose their job, when they have to close down their business, and then when there's a panic selling, that property valuation is no rocket science, determined by the recently transacted price. Now, if the recently transacted price, because people desperately want to sell their property, goes down, and then even if you're not selling, that the valuation of your property will actually go down as well. Furthermore, in this economic crisis, it would be very difficult, right? It could be difficult than normal to get a loans when you want to buy a property, especially if you have a pay cut, or when a bank can have a sniff of some industry are not doing that well, and then there's a likelihood in 6 months time you'll be retrenched. They'll be more reluctant to actually give up the loan. Some more, the margin that the banks earn from those mortgage loans, will be squeezed, like it's so thin, like razor thin, after the Fed or the central bank actually cut interest rate. And then for the rental market, you'll be very sluggish. There's oversupply in the market, and even in the context of 2020, even though before this health economic crisis struck, that there's this factor of this existing overhang or oversupply in the residential property market is still unsolved yet. Then you have a double whammy. Then this kind of overhang unit is not only will decrease, but on the contrary, it will actually power up. So when there's oversupply, according to the law of supply and demand, the prices goes down. So if you are existing property investor, you must have a high holding power. If you are going to sell when the price are temporarily down, you know that you're going to suffer a loss, like huge losses. And then with this gloomy economic outlook, and there's a lot of these risk right factors. You have to look at whether there's certain industry that is normally very profitable, like oil and gas. If the price of oil and gas at the same time is actually down, that it's going to affect the sustainability of a lot of jobs in the oil and gas industry. So when people are being retrenched, they are having pay cut, so and probably there's something like ongoing trade tensions between two superpower countries. That business is not business as usual, and because of that, consumer they are going to spend. They're going to be very cautious in spending when it comes to spending huge amount of money, like buying a property. Right now, the thing is, if you're already investor, for you to be able to sell your property, you need a credible buyer. What if people are holding back on their purchase, or what are people they would rather keep this cash in the bank account rather than commit to a property, especially for investment. That is something that you can do or not do. And people tend to worry in the times of a crisis about losing jobs. Businesses are affected, and this cautious attitude will only be lifted after the market has resumed to normal, which might take quite a long time. So I could say that for property investor out there, good luck to your roadmap to 3 million using your property, because you could actually scrap that now. Are you unsure how much longer you should hold on to your worst performing real estate investment property, or whether you'll be better off selling it as soon as possible? You get tired of attending property investment seminar by property gurus who are still trying to convince you property investment is still as easy and profitable as 5 years or 10 years ago? Well, they might be right, or they might have their own agenda for saying so. Want a non-biased second opinion? I'm conducting an online web class this week to answer this burning question. You are also going to discover if your property is at risk of not able to increase your tenant's rental in the future. If you feel you are going to benefit from these out-of-the-box insider insights, click on the link in the description below after you finish watching this video, and it will bring you to a page that looks like this. No credit card required, but availability is limited. We get filled very fast. Seats are reserved on a first come, first served basis. The fact is, I do agree that in the times of crisis or recession, if you have the right property investing strategy, this could be the best opportunity that you can get, your best opportunity of the decade of a lifetime for you. But the thing is, if you have no money, you have less money, and you need to conserve cash, for your living expenses, because you're out of job, or you need to conserve cash because of your businesses. So basically, I present this opportunity in front of you. You also reluctant to take action, right? And even for working people, if you are highly paid in the oil and gas sector, especially, you could have gone to a guru, and he's going to tell you this is the millionaire employee blueprint. You can basically scrap that now, throw it out the window. Because if you expect a pay cut or a retrenchment, that plan no longer valid. And the fact is, if you look at this research done, this is something I quote by Department of Statistics Malaysia as of March 2020. This shows that 2/3 or about 71% of self-employed respondents say they are not sufficient. They don't have sufficient saving for saving. They have sufficient saving only for less than 1 month. Now, seems like the self-employed are at the most risk of of financial difficulty in a crisis of recession in Malaysia. If you look at this employer, now employer are bosses, right? Probably SME business owner. They are also worried because more than 2/3 of them are actually worried that they are not ready for all this whatever in early 2020, the lockdown, when the business are not running, the stoppage of all economic activities. Now it seems like the people who are least affected, who feel pretty comfortable, are multinational company employee. People who work in like Intel, by the bus of Penang in KL, there's a lot of Intel, British American Tobacco in KL, and all those in multinational company. Mostly, I think they're not going to be like entirely closed down for this multinational company. However, for multinational company, it is very common for them to actually call for pay cut without retrenching anyone. Now, as you can see, at the time of this recording, Tesla is a very big company in US making electric cars. They're actually cutting a salary of 10, 20, 30% depending on job grade. So as you can see, when you have a pay cut, and then your loan repayment you still need to pay, and then that is how it actually affects you financially, right, on your cash flow. And this is the thing about investing in property versus more liquid instrument like stocks or unit trust and all that. Yeah, I mean unit trust, ETF, stocks are probably not so sexy compared to property because you don't see the big money, right? But the thing is, people are actually asking, like a new beginner now. This YouTube subscriber actually asked me in one of the comments. He said that if I invest in stocks and I invest 1,000, will I actually go bankrupt if the stock I invest in drop to zero? Would I actually lose more money? Right? I say no. You're only going to lose up to what you invested, right? You wouldn't go bankrupt. However, unlike property investment, if you really cannot pay the monthly installment, it's not about only losing your down payment or losing that income or money installment, because your credit rating, your credit. Because when you default, you're being blacklisted by the banks in the secret system, and then it will affect you from there on. You can't really borrow money, credit cards and personal loan, all that. At the time when you need money the most, or buy a car, buy a what in the future, your record is already blacklisted, already bad. So basically, it affects you in more ways than one. Of course, you can actually go into like liquidation or bankruptcy as well, right? When you're not able to service all the loans for your property, and that's going to foreclose you. So in the end up, you end up with nothing. Second perspective is for the perspective of people who have not invested in or have not bought any property before. Now this perspective might be very useful for you because to quote from the edge, there's two experts who say that the drop in the housing price this time compared to 2008 on probably like 1998 will be between like 10 to 15%, right? So the developers now would be a desperate seller. They want to clear off the inventory as soon as possible. The existing stocks, they might be willing to offer discount rebates, and then developer might have to scale down on their projection or expectation. For them, breaking even is good already. They have to not say make big money, but not lose money is already a very good thing for property developer in an economic crisis or recession time. So if you are a first-time house buyer, and it doesn't really matter after you bought, the price goes down, because end of the day, if you are a genuine house buyer, especially for those who want to buy and stay, this would be the good time for you, right? Not investing, but property buying strategy during recession, whereby the property developer or even from in the secondary market, there's a lot of motivated, desperate seller. That is where you now hold the higher negotiation power as a buyer, provided you got the money, and then you're in the industry whereby your job stability is high, whereby you're not likely to be retrenched, whereby you wouldn't suffer any pay cut. Now if you really don't believe me, you say, hey Leo, this what you're telling me is really bullshit. Now if you think that everything will be okay, this is just a temporary thing, everything will be fine and dandy. Now I could tell you could be in what we call as a normality bias or normalcy bias. Now what is normalcy or normality bias? It's a tendency for people to believe that things will function in the future the way they have normally functioned in the past, and therefore underestimate the likelihood of a disaster and its possible negative effect. And this might result in a situation whereby people fail to sufficiently prepare themselves for a disaster. In this sense, it's about losing your job, right? About your income, about pay cut. And on a larger scale, the failure of government to include the population in disaster preparation. That is like what happened in the US and a lot of European countries when it comes to facing this coronavirus threat. And it says that about 7 out of 10 people reportedly display normality bias during a disaster. As an example, some event in history, normality bias explains why. When many hundred years ago, the volcano Vesuvius actually erupted, and the residents of Pompeii actually watched for hours without evacuating. Now, lastly, I would say that a lot of property gurus can impress you by driving like nice cars and all that, and how successful you are, and they say, look at me and how you can become me. You just follow the step-by-step instruction that I teach. But the thing is, I have none of that to impress you. But other than showing you that even in the economic crash back in March 2020, I know some of the we're talking about multiple streams of income. Some of the revenues that some of the side projects I'm doing, in US and all that. It's still coming in, as you can see over here. Now, it's really not much, added it together, it could be like easily the monthly income of a B40 or even an M40 person, or even, a fresh grad in Malaysia. So the thing is, even in the worst time possible during an economic crisis and all that, when people are actually losing money left and right, and this is really not entirely like passive, because I probably spend like 3 or 4 hours a month to actually maintain it, make sure it's working fine. Which, by the way, if you want me to teach you how to actually build up like multiple stream of income and all that, especially like in US and all that, maybe just want to comment below and say if you want it and why this is important for you. And then this is so unlike any other advisor who can tell you this, but never really know how to do it themselves, outside from the fact they're trying to push more insurance savings plan for you to buy, which I don't buy, because I know that this really worst investment you can get into. Don't invest in insurance savings plan. If you need more details on why I don't really recommend that even to my clients, check out this lesson at the upper right hand corner. And if you ask me, impacted during a crisis recession time, of course, because business are generally slower, people are more cautious of spending money, but generally if you feel that it doesn't really affect your financial livelihood, then you know that you are in a way better place than a lot of people out there. If you're a property investor, you know that in a crisis time, tenants are asking for rent deferment or waiver, which is why I really don't understand why newbies, when they start to work, in your 20s, and they still want to start property investing, right? At this period when the high times in property investing is already gone forever. So, and then they go through so much trouble taking a loan, paying a down payment just to get, like 200, 300 of net rental, which is the amount of money that end up in your pocket from your rental after you actually pay off the monthly installment to the bank. And then you get a 30 years loan, which is, you had a multiple 30 years loan, which is not a good feeling to have. And then you are in for a game of managing tenants you don't even like, and then you are losing sleep when your property investment value go down in recession times, or when you cannot find buyers, or you cannot find tenants when you move out. So there you go. This is another expose about on real estate agent or property guru or property developer that a lot of people don't want you to know. So which is why, because I'm doing this, no property developer actually are looking to sponsor this channel. So I'm depending on you to support this channel, and this is again what people are saying about this Seafield channel, and these are my best supporters. So if you want to be one, just drop a like, comment, smash on the like button below there. Of course, on and off there are trolls, there are haters, which explains more the reason why I need your support as well. These are all kisah benar. It's all about actionable content that will make difference in your life. Now, if you have a question on this topic, you can relate to what I say. Please leave a comment below. What are the questions you have? Hit on the notification bell and subscribe so that you are notified when I publish new lessons like this. By following Seafield channel, you are not losing anything. I don't need a single cent from you. Just show your love, because this is also for your benefit. So you learn from the mistake of others, and that is the wiser thing to do. And that's more valuable than watching a 5 minutes entertainment videos at Genie Boy TV.